you ever knock over some rifles when they were stacked?
I noticed you call them rifles.
Weapons.
Learn that one real
Rifles.
quick too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not guns, rifles.
That's correct. I've heard of it being done. I was never involved with one, but
How
I've
about
heard
you,
of it.
Pete? I saw a smile on your face.
No, I don't think I've done that, but came close anyways.
10 push-ups for every rifle in that stack.
It doesn't have to be in the stack. If you drop it,
I never dropped my weapon. I just,
you might have to sleep with it.
well, I did that anyway.
Dale, you were on the honor flight, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
And of course, how long ago did you go?
I was on July 2nd out of Chicago.
Len, the honor flight is now taking Korean vets. Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, we sure can. As a matter of fact, we really appreciate all the support here that WJOB has given to the Honor Flight program and giving us some time to talk about that. Dale being a World War II and a Korean vet, he's been one of our Korean vets who's gotten to go on the flight, and we are taking applications right now for Korean vets. And a lot of people think that right now, because it's kind of a lull time, that we're not doing a lot, but we're planning for next year as well. And we've got our first flight that'll be going out in April of next year. And we're hoping to get a lot of the application of the Korean vets, and in addition to our focus on the World War II vets as well. So we're going to continue that. Probably the first two flights will have mostly World War II vets, and then beyond that, we'll see how we get a mixture and focus in there. But yeah, if you're a Korean vet out there and want some information about that, you can either go to our website at honorflightchicago.org, or you can call 773-227-VETS. Again, that's area code 773-227-VETS, and we'll get you the information, get you an application as well.
And of course, we're going to have today on this date, what happened during 70 years ago in World War II. What on this date happened 70 years ago? The Battle of the Bulge.
Yep.
The Battle of the Bulge with the U.S. 101st Airborne. They arrived in Bastogne, Belgium, to protect the crucial crossroads. The Germans captured 2 regiments, and about 7,000 POWs were captured.
I think the Battle of the Bulge was about 6 weeks long, wasn't it?
Yeah. And also, did you know that during the Korean War, one of our generals was captured? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, U.S. general. A month after the Korean War actually broke out, Major General William F. Dean, he was the commander of the 24th Infantry Division. He was separated from his forces, and while trying to help wounded soldiers, he was seeking water for these guys that were injured, and he fell down a cliff and was knocked unconscious. And he would be isolated in the mountains for 36 days. He lost 80 pounds in addition to the broken shoulder and head wound he had sustained. When 2 South Koreans found him, they pretended to lead him to safety, but in fact, they brought him to North Korean ambush site. And though he tried to fight his captors, he was down to 130 pounds and too weak to resist. He was taken prisoner on August 25th, 1950, and remained a prisoner until the end of the war. And of course, that's the story. Now, that would be equivalent to somebody in Iraq capturing David Petraeus when he was commanding the 101st Airborne.
Yeah, Pat, we talk about, we'll never forget and those types of things, but the Korean War, we seem to take a lot of pride in calling it the Forgotten War. And, we try to, we were talking this morning, maybe we should call that the War of Hills, because if there seemed a lot of battles there, Hill 122, well, most of us would know it as Bunker Hill, and those types of things. And we had Heartbreak Ridge and Pork Chop Hill, and boy, a lot of different names going for the Korean War. So those are the kinds of things that you wonder about as far as not forgetting, let's call it, not forget these guys who are Korean vets and focus on that.
I think some of the people are confused because Korea was not technically a war. It was a conflict, but it lasted for what, four years? And a lot of Americans died there.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
You're listening to Veterans Views. The phone number here is 219-845-1100. Let me ask you this. Recently, we just had the president renegotiate with Cuba on allowing trade and everything else, lifting the embargo. In this day and age, and we fought against communism. You fought against the Nazis and communism. And today we seem to have opened our arms up to, well, China, for one, a communist country, seems to have all our corporations over there. And now Cuba. Let me ask you guys this, and we'll start with Len. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, again, if you take a look back at our traditions, Korea is a good reflection. In fact, that's where we started to fight against communism. That's what that conflict was all about. And here we are now opening up to Cuba. And, in one way you got to look at it, sure, maybe we need to change some policies that we've had for 50 years, but at the same token, we can't really just let our values go. Our values have always been that we have a nation that allows people freedoms, and they really don't have many freedoms in Cuba from what we can see here. And not being able to buy a car since 1959. So those car enthusiasts out there in your audience, hopefully they know maybe that'll open up some new 50s cars that'll be coming on the market here from that have been over there. So
That's true.
But,
and they don't have snow down there.
there you go.
How about you, Dale? What do you think?
Well, the philosophy of communism is still alive, and it has been down in Cuba. If it wasn't, they would have changed a long time ago. So it's still there. And why we're doing this, I'm still trying to work that one out.
How about you, Don?
Well, I look at history, and history says that we went to war, actual war with Japan. Now they're one of our best friends. Korea, serious conflict. Some people call it the forgotten war. And South Korea is one of our allies. So maybe what we're doing with Cuba could be a good thing. I don't know all the facts on it, so I'm just going to say it could be.
We're
How
going to
about you, Pat?
well, I don't know. I have my, a lot of the Cuban people that came over in the 50s, I don't think we've negotiated it properly. I think that we should have some kind of repatriation for some of these people that lost their land and stuff over there. The Cubans in Miami are pretty distressed about what has just happened, although the rest of Latin America is for this. And, we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out. If it's for our interest, are we going to see more companies leaving to take advantage of lower labor costs in Cuba, like they did with China? So the number here is 219-845-1100. Anybody has any opinions on it, give us a call. Len?
I was just thinking about the transitions that have gone on and different things as we look at these different nations with Korea and what's going on with Cuba. It's sort of the thing that Dale faced too, and his, going from World War II to the Korean area and that whole generation, things that they had as far as their transition. So, I think that's one of the things we're focusing even on the Honor Flight program right now. We're still focusing on World War II veterans, but transitioning to our Korean vets and taking a look at how we can, find those veterans and honor them. So it seems like there's always a period of change and transition that comes on board. And I think, we're seeing some of that, as I said, with the, things that are going on in Cuba now. And, Korea is still in the news these days as well. So,
Right. One of the big concerns for a lot of people, especially veterans, is government shutdown. The last government shutdown, they were talking about veterans not receiving their benefit checks. That's how serious it was. Well, I'm here to report that a bill went through Congress, both the Senate and the House, and it passed. And Obama has signed it. The VA will be funded for an entire year. So that's going to delay that. So that's a good job. How about you, Pat?
Well, there's a lot of things going on that I disagree with and a lot of things going on that I agree with. And to get on all of them, it would probably take me a long time. We got a phone call coming in. We're going to go with Roger. Roger, you're on Veterans Views radio program.
Hey, good morning, guys. Happy holidays to all you guys.
Thank you, Roger.
I think you guys do a great service keeping all the veterans in people's minds. I don't think that's a popular thing to do with their current regime, unfortunately, but that's a whole other topic. But I do want to weigh in on this Cuba thing, and I think you've got a split between people on how they feel about it. You've got the people that were basically, kicked out of Cuba, got their land stolen from them, and then you got the younger group that, I think they're more of a opportunistic group. I think if you can't, my rule of thumb is if you can't figure out a reason why something's happening, it's because of money.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right there. That's the bottom line.
They were talking about it on the news last night about how all these hotel chains are all looking to build hotels over there, not that people want to travel over there. So, that's going to be a windfall for big business. I mean, the Cuban people, they might be forced out, because of, poverty and all the big business coming. They might be forced out all over again. But, I think it comes down to money. And another thing I was listening to, I don't think anybody's even talked. I know Jed talked about it a little bit this morning, but I think one of the big reasons why is now Russia. I don't know if you guys know, Russia's starting to cozy up with Cuba. I think that's one of the major reasons why the United States are trying to get their foot in the door, because, like they said, the two brothers, they're about ready to kick the bucket. So there's going to be a new regime coming in, sooner or later, within the next probably 10 years for sure. So I think maybe us taking a stance of, becoming friends with them, and trying to get in ahead of Russia might not be a bad thing. But I can see all the hard feelings from all the people that lost everything because of the government. So that's my opinion. I thought I'd weigh in on that, guys.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail pretty much on the head, because, there's a lot of chess pieces being moved around in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And Cuba, of course, which is 90 miles off our shore, is one of those pieces. And it's a very strategic piece. And to have them more in favor with the Russia, would be a disaster for us. And we'd have to go through the Cuban Missile Crisis all over again. So
this gives their government another reason so that, just like what happened before, they could give companies can come in there now and invest their money in there, and in 15 or 20 years go by, another regime comes in, they can go ahead and do what they did all over again, steal all the property back after they come in and develop it.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
History repeats itself, right?
Yeah, it usually does. And we're going to see how this plays out. And of course, Senator Marco Rubio is his parents were Cuban, and of course he's totally against what's going on, giving Cuba all these, lifting the embargo off them. So
Yeah, I do feel sorry for those people, because those are the ones that I think would have all the hard feelings.
yeah, they worked hard, and they had farms, they had businesses, and they had them just taken away in the name of the state.
Exactly. That's what people don't realize.
And of course, people here have to realize that communism, that's what communism is. The state runs everything.
Exactly.
Let's
All right,
go-
well, you guys have a good holiday, man.
You too.
All right.
Take
Thank you, Roger.
Let's go to our panel here. How do you feel about this Cuban crisis? Because you both remember the missile embargo that Kennedy imposed on Cuba.
Well, there's one thing about it that we don't really think about deeply enough, and that is the fact that it's communism. And communism, what we hear about is the people, the workers. Well, one that you don't hear about is the other side of it, and that's control. That's the big thing. It's control of the people. And so there's something going on there. They failed in their system. Instead of working from the bottom up like we do in this country, they try to do it from the top down, and that's why it's a failed philosophy. It won't work.
Well, and again, you take a look at it, it's our basic values, our value of democracy, the freedom of the people, as you're talking, Dale. It's we have to continue to support that in any way we can, and how best we can. And to see something like this happen, it's good that maybe we will get a chance to help the Cuban people, but we got to make sure that those things are in place, that those are the type of things that we're being agreed to before we just agree to unilaterally just open up Cuba and away we go.
With the amount of business hotels and stuff like that going into Cuba, that's going to totally change their economic outlook.
You just you look at those types of things, and that's hopefully that'll be good for the people, but let's make sure it's just not good for the Cuban government.
219-845-1100 is the number here. There's a lot of things on the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the VA also in a little bit, but we have another caller on the line. Let's go to Alex. Alex, you're on Veterans Views radio program.
Good morning, veterans.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to say quickly, first off, I had a friend that went to Cuba by way of Canada, and I talked to some Canadian friends that 6 or 7 years ago were saying that this was going to happen. Now that Obama was in, this was going to happen. And they're trying to go to Cuba as much as they can to enjoy the cheap prices, because once the embargo is lifted, everything's going up. But what I wanted to call you guys was this new bill that funds the VA for a year. Shouldn't be too crazy about it, though, because there's a lot of things in that bill that are permanent. And one thing that should have been permanent was the VA, but it was left off to just be funded for a year. Like permanent pension cuts were permanent.
Are you talking about the
Omnibus.
Okay.
Right. So permanent pension cuts for big corporations were in this funding bill, the spending bill. You guys were left out and left as a bargaining tool again, and you only got a year funding for the VA when it should be permanent too. And that's the problem I have with the bill.
Right. And of course, there was another bill that was introduced earlier this week, and it was the suicide prevention bill. And I believe
that was derailed by one guy that's on his way out and retiring, and he said that it was throwing away money.
We talk about throwing away money, but I get this General Accounting Office letter every week. And I mean, when the Defense Department and all these places buy hammers, they call them multiple impact devices. They pay $3,000 a piece for them. They could buy them at Ace Hardware for under $50. And we build places in Afghanistan, and then we turn around and say, well, we shouldn't have built this, and we spent $1.2 billion on that. And then we turn around and we won't give the veterans a bill to help with suicide.
There was another bill that I read about. I don't know much about it. Maybe you guys can look into it, about instead of defunding a failed, very old aircraft for the military, instead of taking away funding for that's going nowhere, they cut something about this bill is going to cut veterans' pensions and benefits rather than cutting the funding on an aircraft that's going nowhere. Maybe you could do a little research on that.
You know what?
So it seems like they act as if their minds are in the right places, their hearts are in the right places, but it seems like you guys are never done right by anybody, and you're left as a tool to negotiate when it shouldn't be.
Well, you're exactly right, Alex. It's been that way for years, and we have to continually fight to keep these benefits for veterans who, at the bottom line, when all else is said and done, these are the guys that are risking their lives to support this country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're putting their lives out there for the ideology that we have here of a free society. And if we can't give these guys more than we're giving other places, we send a lot of foreign aid to other countries that turn against us.
Yeah, the way I see it is the foreign aid is just something else used as a diversionary tactic. That stuff's a drop in the bucket compared to what we're not giving you guys.
Right.
There's people that, another big thing in this omnibus bill was tax cuts, more tax cuts for the billionaires. And I get into arguments all the time. Why do you hate billionaires so much? Well, because when they get a tax cut, me and you guys that are sitting in that studio right now, end up getting taxed on the low end to pay for their high-end tax cuts, yet we still can't divert money into veterans programs.
And I agree, but what we need to start diverting back to this country is our manufacturing base.
That's right.
And,
right, and these are the tax breaks that keep these people manufacturing outside the U.S.
Well, and I think we all look too is the fact that we've got these programs where there's a lot of volunteer organizations out there that are trying to help veterans with housing and those types of things. And isn't there some way we could make these tax dollars available so we wouldn't have to be focused on housing for our veterans, but focused on other things? And
We shouldn't have to have one charity program out there for veterans, guys, is my point.
that's
We
true.
shouldn't have to see one commercial about wounded warriors, because we as a country should be taking care of the men and women that we ask to go defend our freedom.
That's right.
You're exactly right, Alex. I 100% agree with that statement. Let me ask you one other thing.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you know, the Clay Hunt bill that was derailed by Senator Tom Coburn just before he retired. Coburn argued that the bill wouldn't effectively hold the Department of Veterans Affairs accountable. And what do you think about that?
I think that if there's any truth in that, then find a way to find them accountable. But when we lose veterans at the rate of 22 per day due to suicide, and we do nothing for them and just about anything else for anybody else, we have a problem. If you found what the problem was and why the bill shouldn't get signed, amend it. Make it work. It's something that we need.
I agree.
And instead, before retirement, because he doesn't care. He's going into the private sector. He's going to get a job making millions of dollars, and he'll probably never have a child, you know, go off to war and possibly lose their life for this country. And he's going to live a happy life, and veterans will still be stuck with this enormous rate of suicide.
As far as that bill is concerned, that the way I look at it is, like you said, is that through a study, we're losing 22 veterans a day. And they can't do some funding. How much is a human life worth?
Right.
22 times a day,
in the next
every
15
day.
minutes before you're done with this show, in the next 15 minutes, we'll lose another one.
That's right.
And at the same time, as the beat goes on, there's a Norfolk company, of course, they're accused of bilking thousands of service members, and they're using illegal tactics to collect debts from these guys. So
Well, whatever that tactic is that's illegal right now, I bet you one day comes down the pipe a bill that makes it legal. Because that's what happens, guys.
you're right.
What is illegal needs to be legal, and that's done through the legislative process. Legal and what's right and wrong are two totally different things. And so that's what I feel our Congress does. It makes illegal things, even though they're immoral, it makes illegal things legal so that business can continue.
That's true.
Yeah, they were
Like crazy tax cuts that, like I said, that big corporations get, big oil, big industry gets to move jobs out of this country so that when we move our veterans back and they become veterans, there's no job here for them.
You're exactly right, Alex. Alex, we're going to have to let you go. We got another caller on the line, buddy.
Have a Merry Christmas.
Okay, have a
Thank
happy Christmas and a Merry New Year and a Merry New Year.
Happy holidays.
I'll
Christmas.
take it. I'll
Got
take
it
it.
backwards, Pat.
Well, of course. All right, we had a caller on the line, and I think he dropped him. We're going to talk a little bit later on about what's going on with the VA and some interesting things Don has to bring up. But first, we'd like to say hi to our sponsors, Jennifer East Nichols. Thank you very much for your donation. American Legion Hammond Victory Post 168. You can reach them at 219-937-4264, and they are the primary sponsor of Veterans Views radio program. The Disabled American Veteran Chapter 17, Disabled American Veterans Group, they're always there helping the vets. They're located in Hammond, Indiana. They have their meeting on the first Thursday of every month. It starts at 7 p.m. It's at the VFW Hall right across from
Harrison Park.
Harrison Park. Ron J. Prestmer Insurance Agency. He's located at 207 Indianapolis Boulevard. You can reach him at 219-844-0103, or you can call him on, well, you can reach him on the web at www.prestemerinsurance.com. Calumet Park Cemetery and Funeral Chapel. It's owned and operated by a veteran. It's located at 2305 West 73rd Avenue in Maryville, Indiana. You can reach them at 219-769-8803 or the chapel at 219-736-5840, or you can call for a special veteran savings on a complete burial package. Also, Veteran Views would like to send our deepest sympathy to the Vogel family for their loss. We'd like to thank the Doo-Wop Group. Remember When, Harold Hall. You can reach him at 219-845-2427 or Bob Luther at 219-712-1528. Spike's Lakeside Inn, good food, good fun. He's at 21 East Joliet Street in Schererville, Indiana. Hammond Machine Works. We'd like to thank the Hammond Machine Works who provide precision machining, welding, and metal fabricating to the rail, off-highway, steel production, and energy industries. You can check them out at www.hammondmachine.com. We'd like to thank American Legion Post 80 in Whiting. You can call them for hall rentals at 219-659-0215. And we'd like to thank Marty Zigowitz and Ray Pizowitz. They're with Allied Post 369. You can call them and find out when their bingo's taking place at 219-398-1802. Hammond Fence Company. You can call George at 219-933-4686. We'd like to thank Linda Lawson. She's always there for the vets. She's the Indiana State Representative, and we thank you very much, Linda, for your support. Richie Novak, North Township Advisory Member and a Marine veteran. Calumet Breweries, located in Hammond, Indiana. The Home Depot, who always flies the American flag and gives a 10% discount to veterans.
That's right.
Dan Spitelli, Hammond City Councilman at Large, and Jack Ulacki, Hammond 2nd District Councilman. We thank all of you. Don?
You know, a lot of the veterans from the Vietnam era were given punitive discharges because they suffered from PTSD, but it was not recognized yet. So what's happening is the Army Discharge Review Board is going to go back and review thousands of discharges of soldiers who had PTSD, but it wasn't recognized. So the way they're going to do that is for those Vietnam veterans today, if they're being helped for PTSD by the VA or a private doctor, that's evidence. So that's what you need to send into the Army Review Board, the fact that you have a diagnosis of PTSD. I think this is really a good thing. I don't think they recognized PTSD until 1980. So
1980, that's when they started recognizing. It was shell shock before that, wasn't it?
And battle fatigue.
Something like
Yes.
that.
Fatigue, yeah.
that's
World War
right.
II vets probably had the same thing. We just didn't have a name for it then, I'm sure.
Why do you think the bar business got so big after World War II in Korea?
Exactly.
So, absolutely.
How dangerous right now is the Islamic State and, of course, the North Korean hackers to the United States government? We'll start with the hackers.
With the hackers,
Yeah, Sony backed out of a movie deal because of them.
let's go to our panel first.
Well, I guess I'll start. And yep, here we have hackers going in and shuts down a movie called The Interview. Now, by the name of The Interview, you never would think it had anything to do with Korea, but obviously here it is talking about how we would assassinate the Korean, whatever they call them over there. And but hacking into our systems, isn't that really a national security threat as well? If they can do that with Sony, what's going to stop them from going into our national systems and hacking there as well?
That's
There's
right.
nothing.
Well, doesn't the whole thing raise serious national security questions? I mean, these guys hacked in there like nothing. I mean, it was easy. And now they're backing out of having this movie because everybody's scared. They're gonna, Sony Pictures is scared they're gonna get hacked.
From my understanding, the movie is a spoof on
Right.
North Korea. It's more comedy than anything else. Why is North Korea taking it serious? Oh, maybe we're making fools of them?
Well,
They've already done that to themselves.
yeah, well, they don't see it that way. So, it's, I guess, a matter of honor with them. Sony officials announced plans to cancel the December 25th release of The Interview. That's the name of the movie, I guess, The Interview, after threats from an anonymous hack group, Guardians of Peace. And the comedy depicts Rogan and Franco as bumbling would-be assassins targeting North Korea leader Kim Jong-un. So, it seems to me like everybody's just kind of starting to run scared. What happened to guts here? Okay. What happened to hey, I don't care what North Korea thinks. We made the movie. We're going to show it. So, I guess they're scared their picture theaters are going to get blown up or hacked or whatever. But it seems to me that they should have a little bit more kahunas.
I have a question for you, Pat.
Sure.
When does it become an act of aggression? When they start hacking into our national systems or our national companies?
Well, I think it is an act of aggression. And where's our cyber security? And where's our cyber weapons? How can they do something so blatant like this?
Are they out to lunch?
Well, it seems that way.
Does that mean they're trying to restart the Korean conflict?
Well, they have evidence connecting the Zoni hacking to North Korea. But of course, White House officials have declined to condemn the country for its leaders for involving this hacking thing. They're saying that we don't have enough evidence. Well, they know they have enough evidence. They have the IP addresses and everything of where this stuff is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
They know. So basically, it seems to me that we should be doing more to beef up our cyber security here. What do you think, Len?
There's no doubt about that. I mean, we have to, we talk about it. If there's a way of getting in and somebody's smart enough to protect us from that, and where are those individuals or the ones that should be protecting our country and getting those type of systems in place? We can't allow for something like this to happen so easily. Here we are with a movie being released, and that generates within 24 to 48 hour period of someone hacking into one of our systems. So something definitely is, somebody's not watching the shop, that's for sure.
That's true.
How about you, Dale?
Well, I think it really goes back to the very beginning. We have generations of people living today, and they are the results of people that are in control. They were, whether you call them a communist or whether you call them a dictator or what. If you get a few people at the top and they have the control, they can dictate and literally use the population, and they guide them through propaganda and whatever. They teach their kids these sort of things. They end up with a mind that's blocked, and you can't penetrate it because they've told them that they're not supposed to do that. And it's just we have the results of that today.
We got the Elephant Man on. We're going to take the Elephant Man. Elephant, you're on.
Yeah, you were talking about where's our hackers met.
Yeah.
As a former member of the United States Air Force Security Service, I guarantee you it's there, but we keep it quiet because nobody ever knew during Korea that we had radio outlets hacking onto all Russian the radio in this all over the world. Because in my term, I was in Alaska, and I handled a lot of encoded and decoded messages and stuff picked up by our service. So it's military. It's for you not to know what we're doing.
Let me ask you this, Elephant.
Right.
Do you think that we're involved in a grand hacking war? I mean, with all these different countries?
Absolutely, 100%.
Do you think Zoni should have canceled its
That's civilian problem.
that's a
Right now, the word is that the Korean government was behind this.
Yeah, the North Korean government.
Yeah.
But do you think they should have canceled the movie because of the North Korea?
There was a comment come out that they're gonna movie theaters plant bombs. That's what they're afraid of.
You're right.
Hollywood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing
Sure.
on this honored flight to Washington D.C., any Korean vet should go. I've been there. I'd love to go, but I got one problem. It's either side of my nose. And my daughter was stationed in North Carolina. We took a week's vacation to her, and she took leave. We went to Charleston Harbor, Myrtle Beach, and we ended up in D.C. We happened to come by Arlington and change of honor guard, and that is something a civilian should see. What at the unknown soldier, and then going through them all.
And you're exactly right. You know, people don't realize that the United States has brought freedom to a lot of countries.
That's true.
And, you know, we're going to celebrate Christmas next week, but Christmas wasn't celebrated until 1989. Eastern Europe was only permitted to celebrate Christmas freely and openly on that date, 1989. And
one last comment.
Sure.
I know one family, they used to live next door to me during the war. They do not celebrate Christmas anymore because what happened at 12 o'clock noon on December 25th, 1944 in Bastogne. The family lost their son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you guys.
Okay. Thank you. Dobra.
You know, the VA has their leaders in research. Well, they've come across a company, a drug company, and it's called the Gilstead Sciences Incorporated. And they have manufactured a cure for hepatitis C. It's 84 pills taken in 7 weeks. The only problem is it's about $50,000 per patient. So what the VA is saying, well, we can do this, but we have to do it over a certain amount of time because we've got over 174,000 vets times $50,000. We can't do that, which I agree. So they're talking about maybe doing like 25,000 a year. But within 7 weeks, they no longer have hepatitis C. I think that's outstanding.
They got to go through all that chemo, right? If they
just take these pills, but the pills are super, super expensive. It's the drug company that they stand to make over $200 billion off these pills.
You know how long they have to take these pills again?
About 7 weeks.
7 weeks? Wow. There's a lot of people that have caught hepatitis C in the military from those injection guns,
Right,
I believe.
right.
And,
I dealt with a couple of them.
If people should all go get checked for that.
Okay.
Especially those who have not had a blood test in umpteen years. They might want to go in and get checked for it because sometimes that can lay dormant in your system and you'll never have any symptoms. You'll just feel tired, run down, weak.
Yeah, we're beginning to run out of time, so we're going to do last call.
All right. Well, again, just want to remind everybody about Honor Flight Chicago. We're very proud of the fact we're going to be starting what we call our 8th season next year, and we've flown over 5,335 World War II veterans and hoping to duplicate that with our Korean vets. Again, our first flight next year will be Wednesday, April 8th. So get your applications in, or those of you who would like to just come out and honor your vets, come down to Midway Airport around 7:30 in the evening on Wednesday, April 8th, and you get a chance to honor a number of veterans.
And what's the phone number to get a hold of you?
We can either the website at honorflightchicago.org, or you can also call area code 773-227-8387.
Dale?
Oh, I definitely recommend it. I didn't think that I qualified. Obviously, from what you heard me, I didn't see any action. I didn't really go in any foreign countries, and but it kind of brings everything back and puts things more in their perspective. And I didn't really realize it until after I got home and was thinking about the trip. I had an honor of literally sleeping in the same barracks with these guys that went out there and got shot up. And that was kind of an honor. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't gone, you qualify, you know somebody, by all means, encourage them to make that trip. It's really worth it.
Okay. And to all the veterans out there and all the active duty personnel, I got 2 things to say. 1, have a Merry Christmas. 2, thank you for your service.
And Don, I have something else to say. Next week, we won't be here. we will be running a tape show, and we'll see everybody live in 2 weeks,
A new year.
a new year. And until then, may God bless America and have a happy holiday.
We're still on the air.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away.